Thanks for joining me, Madam Horror, for your bedtime scary stories. If you enjoy this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It helps a lot. If you have a story that you would like read on this channel, send it to me at madamhorror1@gmail.com. That's madamhorror, the number 1@gmail.com. Tonight, tales of black-eyed children. I drove to an elderly woman's house to mow. I had mowed her house for about 4 years now. I used to live down the street from her, but I had since moved away. And I was just getting into my groove when I saw a kid out of the corner of my eye. He was just standing in the backyard. I don't know how long he had been there, or how he had even made his way without me seeing him. I jumped. I pulled my headphones out, and he just looks at me from across the yard. He looked pretty normal from where I was standing. It seemed a little hot to be wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, but I didn't think anything of it. He was a male, looked to be about 13 years old, but I don't know, I'm horrible with guessing ages. I looked at him for a couple seconds before I realized he wasn't going to say anything this far away, so I reluctantly turned off the mower. My senses were already working overtime, besides the ringing in my ears. When the kid asked, "Can you help us?" I think to myself, there's more than one? I get butterflies in my stomach because my keys, my wallet, and my cell phone were left out in the garage. I wanted to reduce my pocket weight. I hurried to the front, and there was a second boy there, younger than the first by a few years. He didn't move his feet, just kept his eyes on me. I honestly didn't care about how they were standing or looking. I made a beeline for my valuables and made sure nothing was taken. I turned around with everything sorted out in my pockets, and I almost jumped again. They had closed in on me, and they were looking up at me. That's when I saw that they had these huge black eyes. I felt so small, so mortal. Those eyes. That's all it took for me to realize I wasn't as in charge as I thought I was. "Can you help us?" the older boy asked again. "We're thirsty, and our dad wants to know where we are." My head is just spinning. I've read the stories before, and I know what they're up to, but I can't hide. It isn't my house. There's a water fountain just across the street, and you can use my cell phone if you want. I already know what they're going to say. "Just please let us inside. We've been outside all day, and we're very thirsty. You need to let us in." I said no. I was trying so hard not to look at them in the eyes. I knew I shouldn't, but I wanted to learn more. I wanted to describe them, so I just caught a glimpse of the little ones. Pitch black, unblinking. I immediately thought I could hear his voice in my head, even though I had never heard it. It was almost as if I was arguing with myself. I was fighting the voice as I was slowly taking steps back in the garage. The kids didn't move forward, and they didn't say anything else. They just stared, and I kept walking 1 foot at a time. Finally, I was close enough to hit the button to close the garage door. I could still see their feet, unmoving as the door closed down, forcing me into the darkness. For about 3 seconds, I was relieved that I had escaped. Then I realized that I was trapped. I couldn't get to the main door of the lady's house, and I couldn't go back out the front. The only option was to leave through the back door that is always left unlocked, the one that I had come through earlier. I quickly checked for what I came in with, when I realized that I had left my keys, which I clearly remember stepping into my pocket earlier, are now in the palm of my hand. It dawns on me that I can't even remember it, but I almost gave them my keys. This is too much for me to handle, and the darkness of the garage isn't helping, so I open the door and the sunlight washes over me. I felt so happy. It left me unprepared for what happened next. I close the door and turn the corner to make my way out front. I close the door and turn the corner to make my way out front, and the oldest was alone, blocking my path. I asked nicely, "Let us in." I spun around and bolted into the backyard. I didn't look back to see if I was being chased. I ran past the tree, past the marae I left out, and I knew that this little one would be ready to meet me around the corner. Sure enough, he was there, and this side yard was more narrow than the first. I put on a burst of speed, and I knocked the kid down. I was about to feel bad until he tried to bite my hand as I pushed him. I ran for a few more strides, so close to my car, parked on the street when I stopped. There was no traffic. Nobody had called my name. There was no reason for me to stop. Except I did. The little boy was crying. I had never heard somebody cry like that. It was crystal clear, like it was coming from my headphones. I turned around and it was sitting up, sobbing. I wanted to walk back and help him, apologize. I wanted to open the garage and find a way in the house to let him use the phone. I wanted to do everything in my power to help him. "Let us in. We need the house," he said through tears. Almost brainwashed a second time by an 8-year-old. I couldn't believe it. I shook it off one last time and ran into my car. I locked the doors and I didn't look back until I was on a different street. I called the lady's house to tell her I hadn't finished and that I would be back tomorrow. Thankfully, she must not have been home. At least she didn't answer. Last night, I was watching that '70s show reruns, eyes heavy and mind in a daze. I was starting to fall asleep when I awoke to what I thought was a loud thud by the patio door. The chocolate chip cookie I was halfway through slid off my hand, somersaulting down my torso, as the noise brought me to an awakening twitch. I turned the kitchen light on, just out of general state of fear, without really any concern about anything being in the kitchen. I checked the back deck from the thump before. That's super weird, I think. Nothing else happens, so I start to relax. I'm not really worried at this point, but a little on edge. I'm a college student, spending the summer at home with my parents, working in downtown DC. They're at the beach, so I'm alone at this rather large house. It's 10:36 p.m. when the door knocks. Seriously, I think? No, again, if I were on the set of a horror movie, or had just been watching something scary for that matter, I would have drawn an immediate connection between the thump noise and the knocking door, usually late at night. But neither of these things applied to me at the moment, so I didn't. I was still kind of anxious about those thumps, but when the door knocked, my attention immediately forgot about the noise that was likely nothing to worry about. Probably a salesperson or a mailman. I remember one time a few years back, a UPS man rang our doorbell at midnight to drop something off. Maybe it was something like that, I thought. Most likely scenario would be my buddy, Frank, who considered coming over but said he was really too tired. He can be a little spacey though sometimes, so I guess he could have changed his mind without telling me. I guess I'd go over there and at least tell whoever the heck it was I like my privacy, unless it's Frank, of course, who I will then remind how spacey he can be. A little weirded out by the situation, though, I grab the first thing resembling a weapon I can get my hands on. It's an old lacrosse stick. I hold it from the head with the shaft facing outward like a lightsaber. As I turn the corner to the foyer, I see through the side window of the door a pair of skinny legs with odd, worn-out slippers. All right, this is weird. That's definitely a skinny chick. Maybe she's confused, trying to visit a friend and knocked on the wrong house. The house next door is about the same size and doesn't really look a lot like mine, but I don't know what else could possibly be at this point. All of this enters my mind in a matter of seconds between my footsteps in the kitchen and the doormat between the front door and the rest of my home. As I stand between the large modern door and whoever the heck is out there, I leave my lacrosse stick on the ground behind me so this stranger won't see it. As my hand floats hesitantly towards the doorknob, unless maybe she's talking to herself. That was a thought that didn't count to my mind at all. My hand stopped frozen in the air about halfway between my body and the door. I wait for several seconds, disturbed by the odd synchronization between my movements toward the doorknob and the voices outside. I wait longer. No voices. I take a deep breath through my nose and out through my mouth. I open the door about 3/4 way quickly, like a toddler anxious and curious to discover the monster in their closet. I stick the right half of my body out, facing two dark, feminine figures on my front porch. The first thing I notice is those beat-up slippers. I look up from there, my head and neck tilting slightly upward to see the rest of her. Straight black hair, uncombed, matted in different directions. She looks sickly, shaking in the cold, with a hooded sweatshirt and tiny khaki shorts. She's about 5'3" and looks 13 years of age, staring straight forward, which for me, at about 5'9", standing on a raised surface above my lowered porch, is at my pelvis. In the dark, I cannot make out the features on her face, but I got to tell something about her was awkward. The way she stood there, off balance, her neck tilted to the left side like a chewed-up, overused doll. Before I can react in any way, I observe her partner about a half-foot behind her to the left. A noticeably younger girl, maybe 9 years old, but with about an inch on her older sister, wearing a ragged blue t-shirt, black pants, and rain boots. She had similarly black hair, though she didn't have the same bizarre demeanor as her older sister. I look down at these two girls, and I have no idea how long it has been since I opened the door. Have they said anything? What do I say? This is weird. Can I help you two? I let out, in a tone I typically use to talk to kids, with an undertone of chilling my voice. I stutter somewhat when I'm nervous or excited, and here I could barely make out a word. "Hello, sir, please. We're cold and would like to use the phone," the younger one says, her head facing straight forward. Her tone, it was like nothing I'd ever heard. It was feminine, sure, but each word left her mouth fully independent of the one before, like they were just words being spit out of a machine and placed in the correct order by a third party, almost like a robot. She was clearly human, a young girl I'm speaking to, yet somehow very, very far off. She didn't sound her age. She sounded at least 14, maybe 15, but she looked no older than 10. Why did she speak to me and not her older sister? What is going on here? Is her older sister shy, mentally handicapped? Am I dreaming? What does she mean about using my phone? It was like she was speaking off of a script and mixed up her question. I wonder if she meant to ask something else. Not sure how to respond to this arbitrary question, I manage. Well, I'm not sure what you're asking. First, nothing. Just stares, straight forward, directly ahead, as if with no visual awareness. Then the younger one says, "Please, sir, we are alone. We need to call home. Let us in." Her response, with the same monotone voice, didn't really answer my question. It was like she was speaking without any concern over what I was saying, just when it was time for her next line. And the last part, let us in, like a command, completely separate from her prior polite and candid questions. Trembling in fear and confused, with a strong sensation telling me something was horribly wrong, I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but I can't let you into my house. You'll have to just stay here while I grab a phone and call for you." I couldn't leave these two kids just stranded out here, but I knew something in the pit of my stomach just told me I couldn't let them in. I was scared. The two just looked straight forward, not responding, and suddenly the older one, who has yet to move or say anything, changes her expression completely. She squeezes her fists as they shake at her sides, as if in great pain, and without moving her face or pale neck, makes a smile, showing all of her teeth at once. They were sharp, inhuman, like an animal's. At this I make an obvious, loud scream of terror. The younger one notices my fear and looks at me. Her pale face, her eyes, blackness, pure black, no clear iris or retina, just two black marbles. Then I notice her silent, smiling older sister's black eyes as well. A grotesque nausea fills my stomach, closing in on me, choking me. I'm frozen. I can't manage a scream. I just can't. I'm lost in fear. My entire body speeds up, tingling, numbing, and I lose myself. Finally, after what feels like several minutes, I let out a noise of horror that I don't think I've ever made. I close the door and retreat to the safety of my house. My body is shaking. I stand, crying, trembling in the front door. I need to reach my cell phone, which is in the family room, and I can hear that '70s show in the background, which brings me some relief, but it sounds off now, foreign, almost like another language in my fearful state. I need to call the cops. I know I can't let them in. "Get out of here!" I yell while banging on the door in an attempt to scare them off. Undiscernible sounds come from the other side, like an animal cries or barks. It doesn't sound like a younger girl. No, it isn't. I know it's the older girl, the silent, mentally off one. But I just can't fathom this. No, I need to reach my cell phone, but I can't move. I can't lose track of them. I can see the slippers in the side window, and I know that she's still there. More animal noises from outside. I scream, yell, bang my lacrosse stick against the door. Anything I can get out of my tired lungs and muscles. I feel like I was being attacked by a grizzly bear. I was in full-on survival mode, doing all I could to scare them away, but any noise I made was matched by the older girl with her disturbing barks and screams that to this day haunt my dreams. Then from the other side of the door, I hear a muffled, "We just want to call our mother," from the younger girl. "Please, we are scared. Let us in. Let us in." The last part, "let us in the same Candace twice over, like a recording. "Please let us in," like a chant. "Let us in. Let us in. Let us in." The younger girl continues, each demand louder and more assertive than the one before, as the older girl's noises match her demands. I wait for any sign of safety, this horrible nightmare coming to an end. I continue screaming at them until finally it stops, and the noises, the chanting, gone. The slippers, gone. I look out my window, sprinting legs, the other girl running the speed of a male track star, but with her legs twisting over each other like a circus freak. I see catching up with her younger sister, who must have given the orders to leave while she stayed for a minute or two, barking, screeching, and yelping like a Neanderthal. Now, watching as her older sister finds her younger sister laying on the other side of the road. They stand there, not looking back at my house, just staring straight ahead, the other way, like they were waiting for something, someone, and suddenly a large figure walks towards them, long legs and arms and lanky inhuman features. This creature, this monster, leads them away into the night. I didn't leave my front door the entire night. I couldn't sleep and barely have sense. Close family, my girlfriend and friends won't believe me. They say they don't think I'm crazy. I feel they don't actually believe. Whatever this is, whatever they are, it's really like they're subhumans trying to take us over. I don't know what this is, but they create the synergy of fear and terror like nothing I've ever experienced. I lay awake at night, terrified when I open my eyes, that this older sister might be outside my window, hanging from a tree, smiling at me, waiting for me to walk outside and leave the house. So I've recently been reading about these so-called black-eyed kids. I admit I was a little scared. I mean, how could you not be after hearing things like this? They only show up if you know about them? But come on, how much could actually be true? Unfortunately, I was wrong. My experience with the black-eyed woman happened in mid-December last year. I was living in downtown Phoenix at the time and just moved into my apartment the previous month. I was out with some friends that night and got home around 10 p.m. I had to be at work around 5 a.m. or so, so I went straight to bed. I woke up abruptly to knocking on my door and thought, it's 2 a.m. Who the heck is at my door? I laid my head back down, but I heard knocking again. I peeked down my window to see who it was, and it was a young Hispanic woman who was very pale. She yelled, "I need your help!" I immediately sprung out of bed, thinking this girl was in trouble. I instantly thought of my sister or mom. If they were in that position, I would hope someone would help. I cracked the door open and asked, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" She simply said, "I need to use your phone." Her voice was very calm, but something was just wrong about it. She was about 5'8", 18 to 20 years old. Everything about her seemed normal, but she had these strange glasses on and a strange vibe. I told her to hold on and then I would grab it. I went back to my room to grab my phone. When I heard the door open slowly, I quickly began to have second thoughts about what I just did, opening my door to a stranger that early. I walked back out to give her my phone when I saw her laying on my couch. I told her, "Make it quick. I need to be at work in a few hours." As I said that, she turned her head towards me and took off her glasses. She smiled, and suddenly, I couldn't move. Her eyes were completely black, like someone had sharpied her eyeballs, and she had some sort of black substance on her teeth. She stood up and eased her way towards me. I tossed her the phone, not wanting to be anywhere near this person. She grabbed it and made 2 calls, which I later found out were disconnected numbers. When she was done, I asked her, "Can you wait outside for your ride? I need to sleep." Suddenly, she began to cry. I told her that I was sorry for whatever had happened to her, but that she couldn't really be in here. She looked up at me and smiled, asking, "Can I use your bathroom before I leave?" And she went into it without closing the door. I grabbed my phone from the coffee table and I dialed 911, but it didn't go through. I yelled, "You need to leave, now." I heard nothing from her. I peeked into the bathroom, and what I saw will forever haunt me. She was scratching at her face and smiling in the mirror. I saw that and ran into my room, and I locked the door. I kept yelling. I called the police. I heard her giggle and say, "I told you I can't leave." I wanted to cry. I was shaking, and I didn't know what to do. I kept telling myself, "I'm strong. I'm strong." About 5 minutes went by. I heard knocking on the door again, as if the situation was in replay. But it was her again. I sprinted to my door to lock it, but was already closed and locked. I was paralyzed in fear. How could she lock my door from the inside and get out? I cracked my window open and threw out a sweatshirt with $20 in it. I yelled, "Get a cab, hitch a ride, and just leave me alone." I didn't touch the sweatshirt or the money and sat there on my steps, as if she was waiting for me. I began pounding the connecting wall to my neighbor. Then I dialed 911 again, and it finally went through. As I explained the situation to the dispatcher, I peeked out the window to see her gone, along with my sweatshirt. I felt the biggest relief, needless to say. I didn't sleep the rest of the morning. I'm not exactly sure what I experienced that night, but I know that I'll never forget it. It happened about 3 weeks ago. I had just gotten home from work around 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time, as I live in sunny California, for all you people who are wondering where this happened. Anyways, back to the story. I live with 3 of my friends, but tonight they were all out doing their own things, which I was completely fine with, since I hadn't had time to be by myself for a while. I repeated my daily routine after work. I took a nice hot shower, made some dinner, watched some TV, and got ready for bed. By this point, it was around 11:45 p.m., and I was exhausted. I had just closed my eyes to get some well-deserved shut-eye when I heard a loud thump at my door. At first, I thought it was just one of my roommates, but they all had keys. That's when I decided I should probably go and check who was at the door. That's when I saw them. At first, I wasn't too intimidated. I mean, what could go wrong? They're just kids, right? At this point, I could clearly make them out. They were both boys. I'm guessing going around anywhere between 10 to 15 years old. And they were staring directly at the ground. They were both pale, almost like they were fading away in front of my eyes. One of the boys had brown hair, but even that seemed like it was fading. The other was a bit shorter and had black hair. Now, before you go ahead of yourself, this isn't weird by any means at all. At least, not in my neighborhood. There's always kids playing around my neighborhood at this time of night, but this was the first time they'd actually knocked on my door. After what seemed like an eternity of complete silence, the taller boy with the brown hair asked me to let them in. And that's when I was hit with a deep feeling of despair and terror. After a second of hesitation, I was finally able to ask, "Are you kids okay?" Again, the taller boy asked, more forcefully this time, "Let us in. We need to call home." So many things were rushing through my head at this point. I almost didn't believe this was happening. There's no way in hell those black-eyed kids' stories were true. I'm terrified. I asked them to leave, but I was interrupted by the taller boy again, asking me to let them in. And if you don't, we'd never be able to go home. Almost as if hypnotized, I slowly started opening the door, wider and wider. I had no idea what was coming over me. I was about to say the magic words, give them full right to come in. That's when I caught a quick glimpse of the shorter boy's eyes. It was nothing but an abyss of blackness staring into my very soul. I don't really know why, but my body suddenly reacted and I slammed the door in their faces. I probably stood there for an hour, still in shock, before one of my roommates opened the door and nearly hit me. I couldn't go to sleep that night. I actually haven't slept well at all lately. Sometimes when I stare out from my bedroom window, I still see 2 boys standing in a light post not far from my house. I think they're waiting for something, but I'm not sure what. What I do know is that if you see these kids at your door, don't bother opening it for them. It may very well be your end. I hope you enjoyed tonight's scary stories. If you did, remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Join me next time for more tales of the unknown